Deep into each other's eyes. Hi, I'm Dr. Alexis Granite. I'm a consultant dermatologist, and I'm so excited to be here today with Look Fantastic. I'm joining them on their mission to educate us all about skin health, not about skin perfection, and super excited to be joined today by Ashley Stobart. We're going to talk all things skin and all things skin barrier. So thanks so much for joining us.
I am so excited to get into it today with you. I honestly am already a huge, huge fan of yours. We're going to get into all of that. But you literally are like a skincare icon, I would say. Not just because you are absolutely incredibly beautiful, but because you're literally a dermatologist. You do all the treatments and you're a businesswoman as well. A little introduction for anyone that doesn't know me. My name's Ashley and I was a facialist for many years. I worked in cosmetic surgery sales for 10, 15 years. Oh, it's all a blur. So I would coordinate a patient's journey throughout their cosmetic surgery experience. And I had my own tiny clinic where I would do manual facials. I would do needling, I would do peels, and I got to know skin so well. I love seeing someone's journey of skin, whether it's at-home products, in clinic treatments. And I love the fact that people are immersing themselves in health and skin health. And then in COVID, I couldn't get my treatments. My clients couldn't get their treatments. And I started getting into at-home skincare. What can you do at home? That's when I developed my product, which actually only launched recently. So it's an at-home treatment. And especially, you know, I'm a mum of 3. I've got multiple businesses and I'm a skincare junkie. I love all the treatments, and we're going to talk about treatments as well, hopefully today, because you've got your own amazing clinic. I was reading through the treatments that you do, and I was like, want, need, all of them, please.
I think sometimes what can happen, though, obviously, is people get maybe a little overexcited. They overuse things, or I see sometimes in clinic that people come in and they're doing a crazy sort of 10-step routine. And we end up in a situation where their skin barrier is compromised. And that's a sort of term that we're throwing out quite a bit, skin barrier. So have you ever experienced that? We can talk a little bit about kind of what exactly the skin barrier is.
Okay, so skin barrier compromising that I've experienced. I went full hardcore with a, like you said, prescription, 10-step routine. I was using active ingredients when perhaps I shouldn't have been. I was overusing them. I was combining actives that weren't perhaps best suited together. And the way that I know I need to pull it back is that I will get lumps and bumps around the nose mouth area. Would I call it perioral dermatitis? Maybe the beginning of it, just a bit raw. My skin does not suit the kind of retinol which makes you peel. And I've not got the time for that. You know, if you do, fine. Downtime for me is not good because sometimes I'll have to shoot content. I'll have to have a full glam. Not good with flaking skin. I definitely started experiencing that when I was using a retinol, I would say, and I was using them far too young.
I mean, I'm so glad you brought up perioral dermatitis, and I can kind of talk more about what that is, but I think just kind of taking it back, you know, just maybe so the listener understands what the skin barrier is. So essentially our skin is made up of layers, and your topmost layer is called your stratum corneum. So it's essentially just dead skin cells, but those cells are actually so important to the health of the skin. And you can think of skin as almost that sort of top layer as a bricks and mortar kind of composition. So the cells are the bricks and the mortar is the sort of fatty glue that holds everything together. And our skin, I mean, part of the reason why I became a dermatologist is because I've always thought the skin is just this incredible organ. Think about what it does for you.
It's your largest organ.
Yes.
It's your largest
keeps
organ.
everything in, keeps the bad stuff out. So things like pollutants and irritants and allergens, but it keeps all the moisture in. And so your skin goes through a natural process where it exfoliates itself over, let's say, about a month's time. So that's
depending on your age.
Yes. And so that skin barrier, that uppermost layer, you know, naturally will shed.
Yes.
But there are a lot of ingredients that we can use that will accelerate that. And that can be a good thing because it can help with glow and just giving the skin an amazing boost. But equally, if you overdo it, you know, then it can, what we say, the skin barrier is compromised and it causes all sorts of potential issues. So things like dryness, irritation, the skin feels tight, it feels raw, it itches, it burns. And perioral dermatitis is actually something I see very commonly. So this is a type of rash where you get sort of, like you said, little red bumps.
How would you know if it is perioral dermatitis or not? Because so many people, I think now it's quite a hot topic.
Yes.
And the eye area as well.
Yes.
What would you say?
Yeah,
what to do?
so I mean, it's so perioral means around the mouth essentially, but it's a little bit of a misnomer because it is actually quite common around the eyes too. And so you tend to get sort of pink or red bumps and sort of raw red, you know, irritated skin. You can also have sort of flesh colored bumps that again, and the feeling is that it often itches. It just doesn't feel right. The interesting thing
feels quite tight.
Yeah. And so, and it sort of toggles sometimes between looking almost like acne and blemishes or looking a bit like eczema. And depending on the day, it can sort of look one way or the other.
Totally different things.
Yes.
And I definitely, the first time when I wasn't as clued up, and like many people, I saw a spot, a bump, and then I was putting more salicylic on, more actives, and it was getting angrier and angrier.
Yes. And I think sometimes people think, oh, well, this might be a purge and I should just continue with this routine. And there are certain ingredients, things like retinols, that can cause a little bit of a purge, but it should be something mild. It shouldn't be something that is hurting, itching, inflamed, and then just continuing to get worse. Yeah. So generally, I'd say when the skin barrier is compromised, you really want to, instead of keeping going with the same ingredients, you often want to really strip it back.
Yes.
And really simplify. And so I tell a lot of my patients to kind of go back to the basics. So things, a routine that's just sort of a cleanser, a moisturizer, and a sunscreen.
Okay.
And I think something that's really important too, when you're trying all these new products, it's great. And I know people love to play with things. I myself love to play with products too. But I think something that's important is doing it sort of one step at a time. So maybe
introducing one new ingredient so you can identify what works and what doesn't.
Yes. So oftentimes if someone does have a compromised barrier, we might tell them to strip it all back. And then once it's healed, let's say in a month's time, 2 weeks time, you can then go and introduce a new product. But again, that one product, one at a time, you know, give it about 2 weeks. And then you can, if you want to introduce more, you know, you can start with more.
So with regards to perioral dermatitis, in your practice, when people perhaps present themselves, is there somewhere where you can access help like quickly? How would you do that?
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, the truth is with perioral dermatitis, quite honestly, there are many cases where it will, if you kind of pare it back and you're doing your sort of home care just with very simple skin, you know, ingredients, things like hyaluronic acid or ceramides, things that are just going to hydrate the skin, and you're kind of leaving behind the retinols and the vitamin C's for a period of time until the skin heals, it will get better. But there are cases where unfortunately it does just persist. I don't know if that's what you experience, no matter sort of, it's almost like a cycle that you get on. And
I didn't identify that it was perioral dermatitis quickly enough.
Yeah. And so in those cases, oftentimes you do need a prescription treatment. So there are prescription creams that you can use, which do need to be given by a GP or a dermatologist. And I think the good news is a lot more GPs know about it just because it is something that quite honestly, I'm seeing, almost like an epidemic of it. I think it's because there is such an interest now in skincare. And also I see it quite a bit in people who are involved in the beauty industry, because we are the people that are trying new products all the time. We're the pioneers. And so sometimes things go a little awry with our barrier.
So it's hard being a beauty skincare influencer. And I would say to people, take this with a pinch of salt, but being a makeup influencer, you know, you can use an eyeshadow, you can say fantastic pigment, reviewing a fragrance, spritz it in the air, love that, you know, don't like that one, not for me. Being a skincare influencer, it's extremely hard because, as you said, you know, you want to look after your skin best. You have got type, I don't know, A, B, or C skin. Not all of your audience have the same type skin as you. Then also, when I work with brands, I'm very, very strict in saying I have to try the product for 3 months before I commit to working with you.
I wouldn't recommend using, for example, a physical exfoliant on facial skin. And that's just because that is basically a recipe for disaster. You can think about disrupting the barrier here, there, and everywhere.
I think that people love a scrub on the face because it does make you feel clean. After you've used a scrub on your face, it tricks you and you feel like, oh, clean, oh yes, fresh, oh, soft. But then days later you will then suffer because you have compromised your barrier. Also, what people don't realize with so when we're referring to a scrub, we mean, don't we, that anything that's got a particle in it of something which is gonna literally scrub your face. So I am more of a active ingredient overnight. So that's what my transformation pads do. They are exfoliating overnight in a very, very, very gentle way. You may have a slight purge after 1 or 2 uses, sometimes for the first couple of weeks, but it's only very minor. You won't have flaking after
and
using.
tell us what the ingredients are in your
So we've got all kinds in here. We've got prickly pear.
Amazing.
Which I love. We've got the 7 seeds in there, which are amazing for exfoliation. And they're for all skin types. So whether you've got dryness and then you want your actives that you're using as part of your skincare routine to work harder. I've bought some of my favorite LOOKFANTASTIC products over.
I can't wait.
We're gonna get into that. I can't wait. And some of these serums are £180. Don't hate, but they are fantastic. And if I'm using something like that, I want that to work its best.
Yes.
And if we do have buildup of the dead cells, then your products are going to struggle then.
Yes, to
be
work
absorbed
properly. Exactly.
So you're gonna have to give this a go.
I can't wait. Yes.
I'm sending you home with a box of that. But skin barrier. I think are you seeing younger girls and boys have issues because of TikTok trends?
Yes.
What's like the worst beauty trend that you've seen?
Oh gosh.
Because when I was younger, I'm gonna tell you a secret, guys. I did it all. I used to put toothpaste on my spots.
Yes.
Who made that
I don't know where that came from.
I used to put the Sudocreme.
Yeah.
Like, what do you see then in clinic?
Yeah, I think, to be honest, a lot of times pulling things out of the kitchen is generally just not a good idea.
Bicarbonate of soda.
Yes, those homemade remedies.
But you do say that a yogurt mask is good.
Yeah, I think where you can sort of use things from home probably is more in that sort of hydrating path. Whereas if you're going for the more sort of active stripping kind of ingredients, I would use things that are created by the beauty industry specifically for that. Otherwise, that's where you might go a bit awry. Interestingly, I think things like slugging, for example, where you're just basically slathering Vaseline all over your face. I think that can be a bit of a recipe for disaster for some people. Again, I like the concept of the hydration, which is great, and most people could use a little bit more hydration, but the vast majority of us cannot put greasy jelly all over our face and not have a breakout.
And sleep in it.
Yes. Or keep our sheets clean for that matter.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think TikTok can be amazing because obviously information spreads so quickly. You know, there is this incredible awareness of skin and skin health, but I actually think TikTok is amazing because there's often terms for things that are super creative that we've actually been doing for years. So for example, skin cycling is a big one, which is great. It basically just means using different products, you know, on different days or different nights, which I actually think is great in some ways to preserve your skin barrier because again, it's preventing you from over exfoliating, you know, using too much retinol. But it's something that derms have recommended for years. We just didn't have a fancy name for it.
And skin is spoken about more now. More openly, and people are sharing their skin journeys, you know. Back even 5-10 years ago, it was a bit of a taboo perhaps to go on social media with no makeup on, in your pajamas, show your acne journey. You know, we are breaking things down a bit, and people do want to see that homely content.
For sure.
My content definitely performs better when it's not too contrived. It's me at home in my pajamas with no makeup on, and that's what people want to see because it's real. But you know, we made all the mistakes, but it's absolutely crazy. My friends have got young girls age 6, 7, 8. They have all the things.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And they want to use all the things. And obviously when we were younger, you know, we wanted to run before we could walk with certain things. I remember like I wanted to buy a bra when I was 10 for some reason. And then I remember I wanted to try fake tan out when I was 10, 11. And I stole my mum's fake tan out of her cupboard. And I put it on everywhere. I've always been like that. I've just always loved skincare. So I would be an absolute nightmare in this day and age. And the next day I woke up and obviously she hadn't told me how to use it properly. So I hadn't washed my hands. So I was literally caught orange-handed. She's got a photo somewhere that she was laughing her head off. She took of me. I'll try and dig it out. But yeah, it's a bit scary.
You know, it's great to have fun with skincare, absolutely. You know, where I think particularly teenage skin and even preteen skin, you know, can really sort of run awry is just that, you know, a preteen, for example, you can think their oil glands haven't even truly woken up yet. So anything they're doing that's really going to dry out the skin, strip the skin, it's going to be much more susceptible to that than someone whose oil glands are quite active.
So like these toner pads.
Yeah. So I'm just not a fan of toner. Period.
No, I am a micellar water fair.
Yes.
If you've got a glam on.
For sure.
Toner though, a
bit stripping for me. And I think you can achieve all the same things without toner, really.
But the thing is, Alexis, people love that clean feeling.
I know.
The clean, the fresh, the take your breath away a little bit. And that's the same as the manual exfoliation, the toner. You get that, like that clean, like hit you feeling.
To me, it sometimes just feels tight, and I don't like
when
that.
if you washed your hand with, say, like a bar soap, your face with a bar soap. I did that once when I was younger, and I was like, oh my gosh, what's going on here? I don't know. I know that was a certain shop have put an age limit.
Yes, which I think, you know, I think a lot of it will come down to education as well.
Yeah. Could you permanently damage your skin barrier potentially?
No, you shouldn't, because it like we said, the skin has this natural turnover, so it's not like all is lost, you know, but I think you really can get into a cycle of discomfort, irritation, irritability. And
then what's the point in doing all the things and spending your money on it when your skin isn't looking its best?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because of the barrier compromise.
Absolutely. I mean, what has worked for you in the past when you've had sort of a compromised barrier?
La Roche-Posay.
Yes.
I have used that for so many years, and I will actually slug with that, but for 20 minutes.
Yeah, yeah.
Then we'll warm wash it off.
Yeah.
I love the fact that you can now actually get it with a SPF in it.
Yeah, yeah. It's
I use this for any time I have any compromise. When I used to do, for example, the radio frequency needling treatment, sometimes people would get compromise or after microneedling. If anyone has a query, I'm like, there you go, Cicaplast.
This is one of the ones that I love for people to just keep in their cabinet just in case you
Why
need
is
it.
that so good at barrier repair?
Well, it's got panthenol, which is a type of B vitamin, which is great for sort of calming, helping with inflammation. It's also got metagacoside, which is a mouthful, but that is a type of adaptogen. So again, it's going to give that sort of skin soothing effect. And it's just the base too. You can see it's like that balmy base. So I think anytime the barrier is compromised, again, you want to think about ingredients that are going to be more sort of nourishing and hydrating rather than the exfoliating, the anti-aging,
so this whole TikTok viral trending products, buy this now, you know, selling fast. It's baffling, but we do need to come back to, like you said, basics before. And you know, whether you want to spend hundreds or whether you've got, you know, £50, what would you say is the best basic pillars of what's in my wash bag?
Yeah. I think that's such a great question and super important. And yeah, I'd say my sort of go-tos in terms of the basic building blocks of any routine are going to be your cleanser, your moisturizer, your sunscreen. That's where we should all be starting. That's just to start. Just to start. And then you can definitely get fancier with your actives and your serums and your exfoliators for sure. But I think you want to just and this is what I tell a lot of times if I have patients that come in, maybe moms who bring their teenage daughters or, you know, where should we start? And I think a great place is to just make sure you're cleansing twice a day because a lot of teenagers, a lot of people in fact are not, but I believe definitely you want to cleanse twice a day, you know, and part of that is in the morning you're cleansing. You can use a very gentle cleanser. It doesn't have to be anything, you know, super foamy, but you want to just essentially provide a blank canvas onto which to layer your products. And we were talking before about absorption and the importance of giving
the oil
allowing the products to absorb. So for a lot of my patients, I might say, okay, use a cream cleanser in the morning and a foamier cleanser.
This is what I do. I have a morning cleanser and an evening cleanser. However, a few celebrities have come out recently and said they don't cleanse in the morning.
Yeah, a lot of people don't. And I'm not a believer. I do believe in a morning cleanse.
But if you, as well, if you have, which plenty of us do, put an active ingredient on your skin in the evening, you potentially are going to be in trouble then for the rest of the day, especially with a certain strength of C or A.
Yeah.
If you've put that on your skin at night and then, you know, you're in the sun, any lights.
Yeah.
Not good.
Absolutely. And to be honest, that's so, you know, going back to the pillars, I'd say, so you're cleansing, you're moisturizing twice a day, and you're using your sunscreen, obviously, every day in the morning. But if you are starting to experiment with active ingredients, two of my favorites are vitamin C for the morning and something vitamin A derived for the evening. So, for example, retinol. And those two do not always play nicely together.
I've experienced that.
When you're putting them on at the same time.
Yeah.
And so, again, you're just, you know, exactly right. You don't want to be leaving that, let's say, retinol on overnight, then all day into the next day.
No.
That is, in some ways, a recipe for skin barrier disruption. So, to me, it really does come down to cleansing twice a day. Obviously, a deeper cleanse in the evening when you've, you know, been out, you're wearing makeup maybe, but
a double cleanse, maybe with an oil-based cleanser and then a more active little bit of spice.
Yeah,
that's what I do in the evening if I've worn makeup.
Yeah.
Again, though, you can over cleanse.
Absolutely.
And that can destroy your skin's barrier as well. So it's all about knowing when and this is why, guys, we can justify having 5 different cleansers in our bathroom cabinet. So don't let your husband tell you otherwise. I do, though. So if I have worn a heavy glam, so like today I've got quite a bit of makeup on, I will want to start breaking that down slowly.
Yeah.
With a warm water.
Yeah.
A oil-based cleanser perhaps, or a cleansing balm.
Yeah.
They serve their purpose at the right time.
Yeah.
I wouldn't just do that on nothing on skin.
Yeah.
And then I would go in with something a little bit foamier, perhaps the CeraVe foaming.
Yeah.
A great cleanser for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
The SkinCeuticals cleanser is absolutely beautiful. Something with maybe a tiny bit of salicylic to get the oil moving, and then hot cloth off, done, and we're ready to go. But that kind of cleanse is not my everyday cleanse, for sure.
Absolutely. And I think just sort of as we do in fashion, I often say this to my patients with skincare, you can absolutely mix high and low, you know, and a lot 100%. Of it for cleansers and moisturizers in particular, a lot of it just comes down to texture, what works well.
Splurge and save.
Yeah, exactly.
So cleanser for sure is a save.
Yeah.
Do you agree?
Yeah, I think, you know, if you love, I actually mix a high-low on that too. So
Same.
I love CeraVe for my morning cleanse, and then for my evening cleanse when I want to kind of do a deeper bit of a foam, I'll use something from Natura Bissé. But it's also about the texture to me too, and you know, that feeling where we're talking about people strip and they tone and they exfoliate because they want their skin to feel that tightness.
Clean.
You really don't need that. You know, in fact, if it is feeling too tight or it is feeling, you know, a bit itchy or inflamed, that is often a sign of a disrupted barrier. So we want to preserve the barrier. But I think definitely mixing and matching a high and low when it comes to, you know, cleanser and moisturizer is great.
For sure. Now, I'm going to ask you a question. Again, trending on social media. Is eye cream a myth? Because all of us want to know. And I'm going to show you at some point what is in my wash bag. And the eye cream is over £150, I think. Yes. Am I wasting my money?
I think eye cream to me, by and large, comes down to choice. So, you know, it also a little bit depends on what sort of skincare you're using. So for example, if you are using a lot of actives on your skin, things like vitamin C, for example, in the morning and a retinol in the evening, you know, you can apply that to the general eye area. We tend to say to stop at where you feel the orbital bone right under your eye.
Because it will permeate anyway.
Yeah. So those products are being absorbed in the eye, you know, the eye area, in that eye skin. And so in my mind, you don't need an additional eye cream.
Okay.
However, if you are kind of just doing the sort of basic building blocks of your routine, you're working on that sort of starter routine, you've got your cleanser, your moisturizer, your sunscreen, and you do want to kind of dabble in maybe actives for a specific area. And a lot of people will notice that the eye area is the first place where you start to see those skin changes. Yes. It's because that skin is so thin and so delicate. Yeah. Then, you know, by all means, invest in an eye cream. But I think in that case, you want an eye cream with some sort of active ingredient.
Like a retinol-based eye cream or something.
Exactly. So, but if you absolutely find an eye cream you love and it's just super hydrating, like by all means, it's not going to cause any damage. It's but I think in general, it's an area where you do want to use some sort of active ingredient to bring about those changes. And interestingly, with the skin barrier, you know, it's a tricky one as well, because you can think about it, there's no oil glands in the same way so you're not producing sebum.
Well, there's no like pores in the under eye.
So not in the traditional sense we think of skin. So it is an area that is very easily irritated. And something, a lot of times, even people who are using products all over their face who develop irritation, it actually manifests first around the eyes.
So when I had my CO2 laser, obviously my barrier was like, oh my goodness, what have you just put me through? And I actually used some stem cells to heal. Yeah. And I think that, that's why I can sit here now. I knew I had, you know, this recording today. So I got my LED on, I got my stem cells on, got my Citroplast on.
Yes, amazing.
I was also spraying the hydrochloric
Yes. Yeah.
How good are
Yeah.
they?
Amazing. So it's sort of like a very gentle antibacterial.
And you
It's
don't
amazing.
even feel it. And
Yeah.
I've bought that now to spray on, like when the kids hurt themselves and stuff like that. It really, really speeds up the repair. But I do think we're going to see a lot more about growth factors and stem cells in skincare this year.
Absolutely. And I think that is innovation that's incredibly exciting. Another, I don't know if you've ever heard or used, is another sort of new innovation in skincare are exosomes,
Yes.
which we use in clinic now, again, to help accelerate the healing process after treatment, for example, like Morpheus 8 or CO2. So exosomes are, you can think of them as the messengers that take sort of, you know, instructions between cells.
Yeah.
And they can really help accelerate healing.
Brilliant.
And I think the amazing thing about a lot of these new ingredients, things like exosomes, growth factors, peptides, is that peptides are amazing. I love peptides. But they have this incredible effect on the skin in terms of rejuvenation without irritation. So they really are kind to the barrier and really give us that sort of collagen and elastin boost that we're looking for. So we're going to do some fun myth busting with some questions from the LF audience and our listeners. The first one is all about active ingredients. So is it a good idea to apply as many active ingredients as possible in your skincare routine?
No, absolutely not. That is giving call the dermatologist. We have a compromised barrier. No, absolutely not. You need to be using the right actives for you at the right time. So I personally will only use a stronger active in winter, for example. And it was what we were talking about before with regards to skin cycling, having the different things in your cabinet. That, you know, we can all go and try different things and using different things at different times of the week. Perhaps on a Monday when you have got a little bit more wiggle room for some flaking or downtime. I personally do love to have like a Sunday reset where I'll do a peel pad or something like that. But my answer's no. What's yours?
I would totally agree.
Yeah.
Big myth there.
No.
Definitely a recipe for skin barrier disruption. And again, I think it's also about giving products time to work. So how do you know if that ingredient is doing something for you if you're mixing and matching tons all together? So definitely kind of slow it down, introduce one new active at a time, assess, and then you can definitely add to it. But our second question is it okay to mix active ingredients in any way that you wish?
Again, ring the dermatologist. We have a problem. Active ingredients are, you know, especially if you think about compounds, going back to like your biology lessons in school, if you put a certain ingredient in with another, it can potentially explode.
Yeah.
And it's the same with your skincare. A word of advice that I would give is what I do when I'm layering is I will put 10 minutes between each one as well.
Yeah.
So that it can soak in. I'll think, right, I've done that one. I'm going to brush my teeth while I wait till that's soaked in and then put the next one on. Absolutely not. A and C, there's a time and a place, but we're not getting into that. Basically, it's a no-go. No. What are your thoughts?
I would agree as well. Big myth on that one.
Yeah.
I think one maybe easier way to think about when you do want to start playing with different products and using a maybe more complicated routine than just a cleanser, moisturizer, and sunscreen is if you are going to use actives, if you're pairing things together, think about things or products together, think about things that, you know, have maybe a slight exfoliating effect or a slight sort of rejuvenation effect, and then layer that with something that's hydrating.
A HA, a peptide.
Yes. Exactly.
Something like that.
Ceramides, exactly. So you could take your vitamin C and your hyaluronic acid.
Yeah.
There are also certain ingredients that play well with most others. So the hydrating ingredients like hyaluronic acid, like ceramides, even things like niacinamide, which tends to be quite calming, that can do well with, you know, mixing products. But I think it is good, like you said, give everything a minute to work, let it settle in and absorb, and then layer, you know, if you are going to play around, I would say rejuvenating actives with hydrating actives.
I saw someone on TikTok the other day and they were literally putting it all together and mixing it. And
Our next question is, well, can you use retinol in the morning?
Certain types, yes. So retinol alternatives. You cannot use retinol in the morning. As far as I'm aware.
I mean, a lot of retinols are somewhat inactivated by UV, so by sunlight. So it's not necessarily a dangerous thing. It's more that you're not going to get that full efficacy out of the product.
Oh, okay.
So generally, I would say best to use retinol in the evening. And then I sort of like going for a more sort of antioxidant type product for the morning. And that's going to protect you from things like pollution, UV.
Yeah.
So C, E, ferulic acid. There's so many, amazing options out there. But I would say it's a slightly complicated answer, but generally, I wouldn't advise using retinols in the morning. Our last question is, hyaluronic acid only works on wet skin. Is this true or false?
So, the whole wet skin thing, I do love a mist, a spritz skincare. I just got one recently from the LOOKFANTASTIC store in Altrincham. The Cordially spray. It's like in an aerosol and it's really nice. Your skincare, whether it is hyaluronic or a retinol, in fact, will work harder on wet skin because, I mean, why am I explaining? I'm explaining this to everyone. You're the expert. So you do have to be careful when putting certain actives on wet skin.
Absolutely.
A hyaluronic on wet skin will do well. It will lock in the moisture. HA attracts moisture. So that would be a great combination. Whereas a retinol on wet skin can sometimes work 10 times harder on the wet skin. What are your thoughts?
Yes, you hit the nail right on the head. I would say you definitely don't have to use hyaluronic acid only on damp or wet skin, but it will lock in that moisture in a more effective way. Yeah. So again, hydrating things absolutely work well on damp skin. Super active things like those C's, E's, A's. I'd say you do want to let the skin dry before you're going to apply them. Hyaluronic acid is actually a sugar molecule that absorbs up to 1,000 times its weight in water. So it is this sort of magical sponge, if you will, for moisture. So putting it on damp skin is great, but it does work on dry skin too.
Yeah.
So I could honestly keep talking to you for hours.
Me
Everything
too.
Skincare, but sadly we are going to have to wrap it up.
That was brilliant. Yeah, no, I've learned so much.
Me as well.
So much.
I want to thank you so much for joining me here
thank
today.
You for having me, Alexis.
And yeah, we'd love for listeners to comment and share and like, and we want to hear more questions for our next podcast. So yes, and we'd love to come back with you as well.
Yeah, me too. Amazing. Thank you.
Thanks so much.